Okay, hi everybody. This is chapter 10, hair service preparation. So, this test is going to be all about shampooing, conditioning, scalp treatments, conditioning treatments, things like that. Diagnosing whether the hair is dry or the scalp is dry, the hair is oily, the scalp is oily, what's going on, and which products should we be picking. It's not a very difficult chapter, but it's a chapter that you're going to use over and over and over again when you get behind the chair. So, this is something that you not only want to pay attention to for state boards, but also this is information you're going to need when you start being a stylist after you graduate. So, let me go through my little spiel. I do not know every question in the book. If I don't know, I will use my answer key. I will verify with my answer key because sometimes I think I know and I don't, just like you guys. It happens. You're going to look for keywords when you're taking your test. Things that say always or except. The very first one says except. Those are going to help give you an indication of where you should be going with your answer. Sometimes a question will be given, and the answer to that question was actually already given in a previous question. So you have to be mindful of that. That if you don't know the answer to one, maybe another question has actually given you that answer. And the other thing I want to make sure you guys do is you want to choose B. If you don't know the answer to the question, if it's an absolute guess, you cannot remove any of the options. Choose B. Don't Christmas tree it because when you Christmas tree it, you're more likely to get some of them wrong. But if you use B all the way down on the ones that you don't know, it's likely that you're going to get a couple of them right just by pure chance. So, let's go ahead and get into chapter 10, hair service preparation. This is Real Talk with Miss Wendy, and let's go. Number one, each of the following is a reason cosmetologists should understand shampooing, conditioning, and basic scalp care, except. So, all of these reasons are going to be reasons why a cosmetologist needs to understand basic scalp care, shampooing, and conditioning, except one of them. One of them doesn't match the rest of them, basically. So, let's go through them. Hair service preparation is an effective opportunity to begin disinfecting the scalp and hair infections prior to styling. That's true. The shampoo service is an opportunity to convey that the cosmetologists are professionals who tend to their clients' needs. That has nothing to do with why we should understand it. During hair service preparation, cosmetologists can determine and identify hair and scalp conditions that require referral to a healthcare provider. That is true. Knowledge of the product category allows cosmetologists to recommend the best preparation and science services to the client. That is true. Let's see what they say. They say A. So, hair service preparation is an effective opportunity to begin disinfecting the scalp and hair infections prior to styling. Okay, you have to really understand the question. So, again, they're trying to tell you which one of these is not correct, right? So it's an opportunity to convey that cosmetologists, professionals who tend to their clients' needs. It is an opportunity. It's one of the first things that you're going to do for the client. Therefore, they're going to know whether you're a professional or whether you're knowledgeable on what's going on. Same thing for you can examine and identify hair and scalp conditions. Sometimes you got to refer them to a healthcare provider. If it's beyond what we do, then yeah, you would refer them. Knowledge of the product category allows cosmetologists to recommend the best preparations and services to the client. That is absolutely true. We're going to use that information to recommend services. So the only one that doesn't fit is A. It okay, it is an opportunity, but not necessarily to disinfect the scalp and hair infections, right? We don't treat those things. Those things have to go to a doctor. So that's why the answer to number one is A. During which part of the three-part client service process do cosmetologists clean and disinfect implements? Now, this is one of those questions that there's a little bit of a difference between book knowledge and behind the chair experience, right? So here's my options: pre service, transit service, requested service, or post service. So, when do we clean and disinfect our implements? The true answer is pre service. Number two, yeah, pre service. you would think that you're going to clean and disinfect your implements post-service, but in the book case, it's going to say you do it before the client comes in. Ideally, you've done it as soon as your client left, and then you're going to do it again when the client comes in. Behind the chair, most people tend to do it one time. The book is going to tell you pre-service is when you clean and disinfect all of your implements. Right before the client comes in, you're going to take care of all that. Okay, so what we would consider the end of a service, they consider the beginning of a service, if that makes sense. Number 3, each of the following is a benefit of using the 3-part hair care services, except, all right, so which one doesn't look like the rest? It's easier to keep track of what a cosmetologist is doing. It keeps the cosmetologist in compliance with state rules. It helps cosmetologists remain organized. It ensures the cosmetologist gives consistent service. I do believe it's B, yeah. It keeps the cosmetologist in compliance with state rules. Now, it's kind of a tricky question because if I'm doing my pre-service disinfecting my implements and tools, that is keeping me in compliance with state rules. But that is not one of the benefits of the 3-part hair care services according to the book. That's where it gets you, right? So the answer for 3 is B. Number 4, why should a cosmetologist ask if a client has been using natural, non-professional treatments such as shea butter? A, to determine whether a conditioning treatment is needed. B, to determine whether there is a danger of excess hair loss during treatment. C, to determine whether a clarifying treatment is needed. Or D, to determine whether a scalp massage treatment should be offered. Okay, I think it's C, number 4. Yeah. Okay, so determine whether a clarifying treatment is needed. If the client is using shea butter, that is super, super heavy on the hair and scalp. It can clog a lot. So we're going to definitely want to use a clarifying treatment to remove a lot of that product so that we have a blank canvas to work from. Number 5. When is it most effective for a cosmetologist to seek information on a client's hair and scalp needs? Before services begin, have a dedicated consultation. Well, that sounds absolutely reasonable. After the shampoo and conditioning service, ask questions before the hair is styled. That does not make any sense. We want to talk to them before we ever do a shampoo. Ask detailed questions about each step in the service while proceeding. Makes no sense. At the end of the salon service, ask whether the client is satisfied. Has nothing to do with their hair and scalp needs. While it is a true statement, it has nothing to do with the hair and scalp needs. So your number 5, your answer is going to be A. Before the services begin, have a dedicated consultation. Consultation, right? Very, very, very important. It's your first opportunity to educate yourself on what the needs of the client, needs of the hair are. Okay, number 6. Which of the following is a reason that a cosmetologist must decline to perform a service and recommend the client seek the care of a healthcare provider? An oily scalp with flaking, that's not that big of a deal. Abnormal scalp flaking, such as large scaled patches, that might be a problem. Excessive tangled hair that is clipping has nothing to do with seeking a healthcare provider. And the hair badly damaged by chemical treatments, again, doesn't really have anything to do with the healthcare provider. The only one that really makes sense is B. For number 6 is B. Number 7. Which type of draping has a smaller neck strip to allow the hair to fall naturally? Shampoo draping, chemical draping, wet draping, or styling draping? Well, shampoo draping, you're going to put a double towel. Chemical draping, you're going to use a double towel. Wet draping is the same thing as shampoo draping, and you're going to use a double towel. Styling draping is where you're going to use your neck strip, because that way the hair will fall naturally and it's not bumped up with a bunch of towels behind you. All right, number 8. Which of the following is a question related to shampooing and conditioning that a cosmetologist should ask during the consultation, except which one do we not care about? Are you taking any medications that prevent you from having a wet shampoo? Do you use any non-professional or natural treatments? How often do you brush your hair when it's wet? How often do you shampoo your hair? Okay, all of those 3 right here, A, B, and D, have to do with questions you would ask somebody in a consultation. I don't care how often they brush their hair when it's wet in order to do the shampoo and the conditioner. Now, is that a situation where you may want to ask them that if you see a lot of breakage or the elasticity seems to be damaged? Then, yeah, you're going to want to head and ask that question. But for this particular question, right, it doesn't matter. So 8 should be C. That is correct. All right. Which statement describes a step in draping clients for a chemical service? All right. Lays a towel over the client's lap. We don't do that for a chemical service. Place a towel across the client's shoulders and under the chin. Put on the cape and then a second towel over the cape. That exactly describes a chemical draping. So let's go back to that one, but we'll read the others. Ask clients to drape themselves so that you can start preparing the chemicals needed for the service. Well, that's just lame because we're there to take care of them. Place a single towel over the drape to protect the drape from getting damaged. That is not why we put a towel over the drape, and we need to put a towel under the drape as well. So your answer is going to be B for number 9. We're going to place it over the client's shoulders, under the chin, put on the cape, then add another towel over the cape. Number 10. Each of the following is a step in the professional draping procedure except. They like this word except in this chapter apparently. So which one doesn't look like the rest? Ask the client to remove jewelry and glasses. That's appropriate. Ask the client to fasten the cape around their neck. We wouldn't necessarily do that. Use a protective strip, neck strip, or pin long hair up and out of the way. So a professional draping procedure does not have anything to do with asking the client to fasten the cape around the neck. 10 should be B. Yes, 10 is B. A cosmetologist should avoid brushing the scalp when? Before a permanent hair color service, if the scalp needs debris or product buildup removed, if the client has coily hair, when the client has already shampooed that day. So you should avoid brushing the scalp. It should be A, number 11. Yeah, A, before a permanent hair color service. So we don't want to irritate the scalp before we put on something, a chemical that's going to open up the pores, open up the hair, right? That's going to create irritation for the client. So if they are getting a permanent hair color service, do not brush the scalp. You can gently brush the hair, but you cannot brush the scalp. Number 12. During shampoo service, a cosmetologist observes that a client with tight curl patterns needs the wet hair detangled. Which brush type should the cosmetologist use? Now, this is a really big one, right? The curlier the hair, the bigger the space you need between your teeth. So, plastic vent brush, that is not a good idea. Wet tight brush, again, not a great idea for coily hair, client that has really coily hair. Paddle brush with rubber-like bristles, not so great, but a wide tooth comb, that is the route you should take when a client has really curly hair. Most students are going to automatically grab their wet brush, and that is not your best option. You need to be using a wide tooth comb to start with. So number 12 is D. How are the effleurage and the petrissage techniques for scalp massage different? So there's effleurage and there's petrissage, and you're going to have to know which one is which in order to answer this question, right? So effleurage massage begins at the back of the neck, back of the head, and move towards the hairline. We would never stop from the bottom and work our way up, so that's out. Effleurage uses movements along the scalp, whereas petrissage uses pushing and kneading of the scalp. That is an accurate statement. Let's make sure it's the best one. Effleurage loosens hardened sebum, whereas petrissage loosens dead skin cells. That does not make sense. Effleurage uses slow, deliberate motions, whereas petrissage uses brisk, random motions. Again, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So the only one that really makes sense is B, 13B. Effleurage uses movements along the scalp, whereas petrissage uses pushing and kneading of the scalp, right? So when you're around the hairline, you're using your thumbs, you're using your fingers, and you're using effleurage movements. As you're going back through the scalp and down the back of the nape of the neck, that is when you're going to be using your petrissage. Number 14. Each of the following is a benefit of the scalp massage, except, there's that word again, increased scalp microcirculation, calming and relaxing, decreased natural hair loss, minimized flaking. It should be C. Let's just check. Yeah, C is the answer. Um, Benefit of scalp massage, decreased natural hair loss is not a benefit of scalp massage, right? I can't massage your scalp and keep your hair on your head longer, right? That's exactly what it's saying, and that doesn't make sense. So that's going to be your answer is C. Why might a cosmetologist choose to give a client a scalp massage using the petrissage technique? To loosen dead skin cells from the scalp, to detangle hair, to remove excess moisture after shampooing, or to bring nutrients to the scalp. It should be A, number 15. Yeah, that's A. It's going to loosen the dead skin cells from the scalp. Number 16. At which stage of service should a cosmetologist perform a scalp massage to help restore hair to a more balanced state? So when should you do the scalp massage? Before shampoo, during conditioner, or after all other services? It should be B, but C I get. Let's see which one it is. 16 is C, during conditioning. Okay. The more balanced state is done with the conditioner because the conditioner has a lower pH. It has a lower pH, therefore it's going to close the cuticle, create shine, create manageability, and bring everything back to a balanced state. That is why shampooing is not the answer. Shampoo has an alkaline base generally. There's some that aren't, but it's going to have a higher pH than the conditioning service. Number 17, a cosmetologist performing a dry hair and scalp treatment determines that the client's hair is dry and brittle. How could the cosmetologist design a treatment to improve the client's hair? The cosmetologist should stimulate the scalp with a shampoo that contains a stimulating oil. The cosmetologist should attempt to restore the hair's moisture balance using a scalp steamer. The cosmetologist should stimulate the follicles using effleurage techniques, or the cosmetologist should avoid overworking the hair strands by massaging the scalp with fingernails to minimize the contact with the scalp. You have to understand the question, okay? A cosmetologist, so we are doing a dry hair and scalp treatment that determines the client's hair is dry and brittle, right? So what do we do? How do we design a treatment to improve the client's hair? If the hair is dry and brittle, the only one that really makes sense is the scalp steamer. Very, very good for imparting moisture into the hair, creating it a little bit more healthy, allowing products to penetrate better, all of the good things that we like. So your answer to number 17 is B. Number 18. Which massage technique is most effective in an oily hair and scalp treatment? So which one is the most effective? A gentle action at the root area, a kneading technique, light quick strokes under an infrared heating lamp, or lifting the scalp with a rotary motion. It should be B, excuse me. Yeah, it's B. A kneading technique is your most effective technique that you can use in your oily hair and scalp treatment. 19. What is the most appropriate scalp treatment plan for a client with straight textured hair who is seeking relief from a dry scalp? Massage the scalp with a kneading action to release hardened sebum, then use a deep cleansing shampoo. We're talking about a dry scalp. Do not pre-brush to avoid overstimulating the scalp. Wash with a shampoo containing mint or other stimulating oils. Pre-brush the scalp to loosen dead skin cells, then treat the scalp with a moisturizing preparation that does not have high detergent content or occlusive oils. I like that. Massage the scalp using fingernails to scrape off loose skin cells, then treat with a lotion with a high alcohol content. That's an oxymoron, right? Lotion, high alcohol content. Doesn't make sense. Lotion is to moisturize, alcohol is to dry. So the only one that really makes sense is C. Number 19 is C. We're going to pre-brush, then we're going to use a moisturizing preparation. Number 20. Oh, it's a long one. You know how we love these long questions. Here we go. A salon has recently moved from a building in an urban area to another building in a more rural area. Urban means more city-like, rural means more country-like, if you don't know. Outside the town. After the move, the cosmetologists working in the salon have raised concerns that their services are not up to their usual standards. Shampoo services do not lather well, and hair color results are unsatisfactory. How should the salon manager respond to these concerns? What is that telling you? If you're in a rural area outside of town, you very well may have hard water. You may have well water. So I'm going to keep that in mind when I go through my answers. Right. The manager should check the temperature of the water heater. That has nothing to do with it. The manager should have the water tested, as the plumbing in the new building may be affecting the pH levels of the water. Let's hold that one. The manager should have the heating and air conditioning system tested. Nothing to do with it. The manager should have the water tested for hardness, as the new building may use water sources that supplies hard water. So the most correct answer is D. Let me just verify. Yes, D is your answer. 21. In which situation would a clarifying shampoo be recommended? When there is product buildup, when the scalp and hair are oily, when the hair needs improved manageability, or when dry, brittle hair needs softening. So here's your clue. Remember, you're going to read the question very carefully. It's when should a clarifying shampoo be recommended? Clarifying is when you have product buildup. Number 21 is A. That is what clarifying shampoo is for. It's for product buildup, right? Not for hair and scalp that are oily. That's more humectants. Product buildup is, that's protein. Product buildup is clarifying. Which shampoo type would benefit a client with dry, brittle hair that needs softening? Balancing shampoo, shampoo with added keratin protein, medicated shampoo, or an oil shampoo? Well, the only one that really makes sense is your oil shampoo. I wish I could give you an example of an oil shampoo. It's not really used all that common anymore, but it is there. They're going to call it different things. If the hair is dry and brittle, they're going to use a lot of humectants. They're going to use avocado oil, jojoba oil, things like that. So that would be considered an oil shampoo. All right. 23. During a scalp and hair analysis of a new client who will be receiving a chemical relaxing treatment, a cosmetologist notices that the client's hair and scalp are oily. Which shampoo type should the cosmetologist use when washing the client's hair? Conditioning, balancing, oil, or pH balance? Let's see. The hair and scalp are oily. I would say probably D. Let's look. 23 is B, a balancing shampoo. Okay, let me clarify why the answer is B. If the hair and scalp are oily, a balancing shampoo for not too oily, not too dry is going to be your best option. pH balanced shampoo is not bad. It's not a bad option. I'm not mad about it. But your most correct, and that's what Milady likes to do, most correct answer is your balancing shampoo. It comes directly out of the book. There you go. 24. How do conditioners benefit hair? What are they going to do? What are their options? What do they do, right? Conditioners strengthen hair by attaching artificial protein molecules to the hair's natural protein. Conditioners remove excess oils and residual minerals from the hair. Conditioners give the illusion of added volume and density. Conditioners infuse moisture and protect against breakage. It should be, 24 should be D. Yeah, D is correct. It infuses moisture and protects against breakage. So that's why we use our conditioner for the most part, right? The other ones don't really make sense. I like A, but it's not the most correct answer, so you're going to have to go with D. It infuses moisture and protects against breakage. Last question. A client consults with a cosmetologist about a recent problem with dry hair that has not been previously experienced. When asked by the cosmetologist if there is anything different in the client's hair care practices, the client describes using olive oil as a treatment for a dry scalp. What conclusion can the cosmetologist make about a possible cause of the dry hair? Right, so think about that. They're using olive oil on the scalp, but the hair is considered dry. So they're not using enough oil for the dry scalp treatment, so the hair is unable to absorb enough moisture. The client is using too much oil for the dry scalp treatment, and excess buildup on the scalp is contributing to the dry hair. The client is shampooing too often, which is drying both the scalp and the hair. Or the client should not use an oil treatment for dry scalp and should seek out a different treatment for dry scalp. I believe our answer is B. Let me just verify. Yeah, B. So if you use too much oil on the scalp for a dry scalp, it's going to create buildup on the scalp that's not going to allow your natural oils to go through the hair and therefore causing it to be dry. So there are our 25 questions. Remember, you're not guaranteed to get these 25. You might get a couple of them. SEMA is going to give you a bank of questions. They're all different for everybody. They usually have 100, 150 questions they choose from for your 25, 30, however many your instructor has deemed you need to have. So good luck on your test. This was Chapter 10, Hair Service Preparation, and have a great day, guys.